Hey everyone, and welcome back to Talk Tickers. Today we are diving into Alliance Resource Partners, ARLP, Q4 2024 earnings call.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty interesting one.
Definitely not your average earnings report.
Not at all. We're talking coal markets, Bitcoin mining. ARLP is really kind of straddling two worlds right now.
Absolutely.
That traditional energy market,
Right.
and then that digital asset frontier.
Yeah, so let's just jump right in.
Okay.
Give us like the 30,000-foot view of ARLP's Q4 results and for the full year.
Absolutely. So they reported a dip in both their revenue and earnings for Q4.
Okay.
Wrapping up the year with $2.4 billion in revenue and a net income of $360.9 million.
Okay.
Their earnings per unit came in at 2.77 for the year.
Okay, so those numbers are down from 2023.
Yes, they are.
But does that necessarily mean that ARLP is
Not necessarily.
in trouble or like
No. They faced some pretty significant challenges this past year.
Okay.
And a lot of those stemmed from just broader market forces.
Outside of their control.
Totally outside of their control.
Yeah, okay, so like what are we talking about here? What were some of these headwinds that they were facing?
So, we had a pretty mild winter,
Right.
which naturally reduced demand for coal.
Right.
On top of that, you had natural gas prices that stayed pretty low, which made coal a less attractive option for power generation.
And I remember reading as well that they had some pretty difficult mining conditions in Appalachia,
Exactly.
which probably impacted their production.
It definitely had an effect.
Yeah.
And then in addition to that, you also had elevated customer inventories,
Oh, so they just had like a ton of coal that they couldn't sell.
which limited the spot opportunities
Yeah.
for them to be able to sell their coal.
So perfect storm of
Yeah,
not great things happening
it really was.
in the market. But despite all that, it sounds like they were still able to kind of push forward
That's right.
with some strategic initiatives.
Yeah, and that's what I think is really impressive, is that even with these headwinds, they kept their focus on managing costs. And they continued to push forward with those capital improvements
At their mines.
at several of their mines.
And you're talking about the Tunnel Ridge,
Yes.
Hamilton, Warrior, and Riverview.
Exactly.
Okay, so those are like their,
Some of their biggest operations.
yeah.
So,
It makes sense that they would
makes a lot of sense.
want to make sure that those are running smoothly.
They're playing the long game.
Yeah, it seems like they're not just
Yeah.
reacting to like these short-term market swings.
Exactly. They're laying the groundwork for a more efficient and hopefully more profitable future.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so speaking of the future, what's their outlook specifically on the coal market? Like, do they see an increase in demand going forward?
Interestingly enough, they do.
Really?
ARLP actually anticipates that domestic demand for coal is going to be higher in 2025.
Okay.
And they attribute this to the early cold snap that we had this year,
Okay.
which really drained those customer inventories and drove up that consumption.
So now everybody needs to restock their coal supplies.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Precisely. And what's even more interesting is that ARLP is seeing a surge in customer inquiries
Really?
for both near-term and long-term supply contracts.
Wow. Okay, so like,
It seems like utilities are realizing they need to secure those coal supplies to ensure reliable power generation.
so I guess this kind of begs the question of why now?
Yeah.
Why are we seeing this renewed interest in coal? I thought everybody was moving towards renewables.
Well, there's a few factors at play.
Okay.
First of all, we are seeing unprecedented growth in baseload power demand.
Okay.
And this is being fueled by things like data centers and AI infrastructure.
Oh, wow.
You need a massive amount of reliable energy to power all of that.
24/7, exactly.
24/7.
Right.
Exactly. Energy that can be delivered around the clock, regardless of the weather.
Yeah, you can't have your servers crashing because the wind isn't blowing or the sun isn't shining.
Exactly. And beyond that, there's a growing emphasis on grid reliability.
Right.
We've experienced those blackouts and brownouts in recent years.
For sure.
Those incidents have really highlighted the limitations of relying solely on intermittent renewables.
Yeah, so it seems like coal is kind of making this comeback as that dependable energy source.
That's what the data suggests.
Okay, so the outlook for coal long term
Long term, it actually appears quite strong.
is looking pretty good.
It does.
Okay, what about coal prices, though? Have they stabilized after all the volatility that we saw in previous years?
Actually, yes.
Okay.
There were some fluctuations, but the average coal sales price per ton remained relatively stable in 2024,
Okay.
close to those record levels that we saw from 2023.
Okay, so no major price shocks,
No.
at least for now.
Not for now, at least, however.
Okay.
ARLP's guidance for 2025 is hinting at a potential softening of prices, especially in the Illinois basin.
Okay.
This reflects current market conditions, but it is something we'll need to monitor closely going forward.
Got it. So lower prices potentially down the road. What about their production costs, though? Are they taking steps to try to kind of mitigate that potential squeeze on their margins?
Yeah, ARLP is forecasting improved coal production costs for 2025,
Okay.
which should help offset any impact from potentially lower selling prices.
So those improvements that they're doing to their mines are really going to be crucial
They are going to be crucial.
for them to stay competitive.
Absolutely. However, they are expecting some production hiccups in the first quarter of 2025.
Okay.
Because of those planned longwall moves.
Longwall moves.
Yes.
What is that?
It's a specific type of mining technique
Okay.
and also the completion of those infrastructure upgrades.
Okay.
So they're temporary challenges,
Yeah.
but they could impact output in the short term.
Got it. So a busy first quarter for them.
A busy first quarter indeed.
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
switch gears a little bit and talk about their royalty business.
Yes.
How did that perform in 2024?
Their oil and gas royalty business actually had a standout year.
Okay.
They achieved record volumes. This was driven by increased drilling and completion activities on their properties, as well as some strategic acquisitions.
So even with the oil and gas prices being kind of all over the place,
Kind of shaky.
their royalty segment was able to
Pull off a record
have a
year.
record year.
Yes.
That's impressive.
It really is. It
Yeah.
demonstrates that they're making smart investments
Okay.
and that they're committed to growing that side of the business.
Okay.
Of course, commodity price volatility,
Is always a wild card.
always a wild card in the oil and gas sector. But ARLP seems determined to keep expanding their oil and gas minerals portfolio,
Especially in the Permian Basin.
particularly in the Permian Basin. Yes.
They seem to really
So
like
it's their focus areas.
the Permian.
Yes.
Okay, so are we ready to talk about the elephant in the room?
Yes, I think we are.
The Bitcoin mining.
Let's dive into the digital world.
All right, so tell us, how did this initiative actually impact their bottom line?
Well, they've actually been leveraging their mining infrastructure for Bitcoin mining since 2020.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought that was like a new thing.
They've been kind of strategically building this up behind the scenes,
Right.
and it's definitely paying off.
Okay.
So this initiative actually contributed positively to their net income in 2024
Okay.
with a $22.4 million gain
Wow.
from the appreciation of their Bitcoin holdings.
So $22.4 million just from their Bitcoin holdings.
Just from their Bitcoin holdings, yes.
That's not chump change.
Not at all.
Yeah. Okay, so it seems like their gamble is paying off.
It's definitely an intriguing development.
Yeah.
And what's even more interesting is that ARLP is really actively evaluating their Bitcoin strategy going forward.
Oh, so they're not just like,
They're trying to find that sweet spot between holding on to their Bitcoin in hopes that the price continues to appreciate and strategically selling some to cover those operating expenses.
so they're being smart about it.
They're being very smart about it.
They're not getting caught up in all the hype.
No,
Okay.
very deliberate and thoughtful about their crypto play.
Yeah. All right. So we've covered a lot of ground here in this first part.
We have.
Talked about their financial performance, the challenges that they faced, the moves that they're making to adapt and innovate. What were kind of like your biggest takeaways from this initial analysis? What really jumped out at you?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that ARLP is at a fascinating crossroads.
Okay.
They're a classic coal company, but they're trying to navigate this complex and changing energy landscape.
Right.
But at the same time, they're boldly dipping their toes into the world of digital assets
Yeah.
and potentially hedging against some of the uncertainty of the traditional energy market.
It's like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too.
In a way, they are. And it will be really interesting to see how this duality plays out over the long run.
Yeah.
Can they successfully balance these two seemingly disparate worlds?
Right.
It's the big question, and we'll continue to explore it in part 2 of our deep dive. Welcome back to Talk Tickers.
All right. So in part 1, we really dissected AOP's recent performance.
Yeah, we did.
Kind of looked at the headwinds that they were facing and how they were responding strategically.
We saw how they're dealing with this fluctuating coal market,
Right.
but also, simultaneously venturing into the world of Bitcoin mining.
Yeah. It's a delicate balancing act for sure.
It really is.
Yeah. Okay, so in this part, I kind of want to examine, like, what does all this mean for ARLP's future? What does their story tell us about the broader energy landscape?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think the key forces at play here
Yeah.
are, we're in this changing energy market.
Right.
And there's these really powerful forces that are kind of pulling in different directions.
Mm.
On the one hand, you have the global push for cleaner energy.
Yeah.
Renewables, decarbonization is taking center stage.
Right.
And this obviously puts a lot of pressure on those traditional fossil fuel companies like ARLP.
Right. But at the same time, you also have this undeniable and growing demand for reliable power.
Yes.
Especially baseload power that can be delivered consistently.
Absolutely.
Regardless of weather conditions.
Regardless of the weather.
Yeah.
And that's where coal still holds a significant advantage.
Yeah, because you can't just rely on solar and wind
Right.
when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing.
Exactly. It's a classic push and pull.
Yeah.
And ARLP is really trying to find that sweet spot, that equilibrium,
Right.
where they can meet today's energy demands, but also position themselves for a future that's likely going to look quite different.
Yeah, it's almost like they're playing both sides of the field.
In a way, they are.
Yeah.
They're acknowledging the energy transition,
Right.
but they're also capitalizing on the fact that we still need this reliable baseload power.
Mm-hmm. And their Bitcoin mining operation really fits right into that strategy.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
It's a really clever way for them to leverage their existing assets,
Okay.
generate these additional revenue streams, and potentially even hedge against some of the risks associated with the volatility in the energy market.
Okay. So smart move.
Yeah.
But beyond just their strategic positioning,
Yes.
I kind of want to take a closer look at their financial health.
Yeah.
How would you assess their current financial standing?
I would say their balance sheet is rock solid.
Okay.
Their cash flow is robust.
Okay.
And they have a long history of disciplined capital allocation.
So those are all really good signs.
Very positive signs.
Yeah. So what does that tell us about their ability to kind of weather any potential storms ahead?
It suggests that they're well equipped to navigate uncertainty,
Okay.
adapt to changing market conditions.
Mhm.
They're not over leveraged. They're
Yeah.
generating this healthy cash flow.
Yeah.
And they're investing in projects that should improve their long-term efficiency and profitability.
So they're not just sitting on a big pile of cash.
Not at all.
They're actually putting it to work.
Exactly. They're investing in their existing coal operations,
Yeah.
growing their royalty business,
Mm.
exploring these new technologies like Bitcoin mining.
Yeah. They're not afraid to take some calculated risks,
Yeah,
but it seems like they're also being smart about it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
They're striking that delicate balance
Right.
between being responsible stewards of capital,
Okay.
but also pursuing those new avenues for growth.
Okay. So the team at the helm of ARLP,
Yes.
they've been there for quite a while.
They've been leading ARLP for a considerable amount of time.
What would you say their leadership style is like?
I think they possess a very deep understanding of the coal industry,
Okay.
the energy markets,
Hmm.
and the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
So would you say that they are risk takers? Are they conservative? Are they visionaries?
I would say they're a blend of all of those things.
Okay.
They're not afraid to make bold moves,
Yeah.
as evidenced by that foray into Bitcoin mining,
Right.
but they're also grounded in reality.
Yeah.
They understand the importance of managing risk,
Mm.
maintaining that financial discipline.
So they're not just chasing the latest trends.
No, they're not chasing fads.
Okay.
They're making these strategic decisions based on their experience and long-term vision.
Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit and talk about the bigger picture.
Okay.
What implications does ARLP's performance have for the broader energy industry?
It's really fascinating
Yeah.
because ARLP's story is in many ways a microcosm of the challenges and opportunities that are facing the entire energy sector.
Okay.
And take, for instance, the issue of grid reliability.
Yeah.
We've seen these rolling blackouts and brownouts in California and
Mm.
Texas, even parts of the Northeast.
Mm.
And it highlights the critical need for diversified energy mix
Right.
that includes those reliable baseload power sources
Yeah.
like coal and nuclear.
You can't just rely on solar and wind.
Right, exactly. And I think the fact that ARLP is focusing on securing those long-term contracts for their coal production
Right.
suggests that utilities are realizing they need that dependable source of energy.
Yeah, it's almost as if coal is having a renaissance,
It is.
being driven by this need for grid reliability
Absolutely.
and this growing demand for electricity.
And the demand for electricity is going to keep going up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think there's a renewed appreciation for the role that coal can play
Yeah.
in ensuring a stable and resilient energy grid.
Now, of course, we can't ignore the environmental impact.
We can't.
coal is a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions.
Absolutely.
That's a serious concern.
You're absolutely right. Those environmental concerns are legitimate and they're significant.
Yeah.
That's why it's so crucial for companies like ARLP to invest in technologies.
Like carbon capture and storage.
Exactly. Carbon capture and storage that can reduce their carbon footprint.
Mm-hmm. Are there other technologies being explored?
There are other avenues being explored.
Okay.
Things like cleaner coal utilization technologies.
Okay.
Like advanced gasification.
So it's not just about burning coal in the same way
No, it's not.
that we always have.
It's about finding new ways to utilize this resource.
Right.
In a more environmentally responsible manner.
Yeah, we need to strike a balance between
Sure.
meeting our energy needs and also protecting the environment.
It's a complex challenge,
Yeah.
but it's one that we have to address head on.
Agreed. Okay, so let's
Sure.
shift gears a little bit and talk about the investor's perspective.
Yeah.
What does all of this mean for somebody who's considering investing in ARLP?
Honestly, it's a mixed bag.
Okay.
On the positive side, they have a strong track record.
Mm-hmm.
Their financials are solid,
Okay.
and they are well positioned to benefit from this continuing demand for reliable energy.
But on the flip side, they are operating in a sector that is facing some pretty significant headwinds
Yes,
from both a regulatory and an environmental perspective.
absolutely. So it's a high risk, high reward type of investment.
Okay.
So if you believe that coal is going to continue to play a major role in the energy mix for the foreseeable future,
Right.
then IRLP might be an attractive option.
But if you're somebody who's looking for a purely green investment,
Yes.
then this probably isn't the right stock for you.
It's probably not the right fit.
Yeah. And it's important to remember, too, that the energy landscape is constantly evolving.
It is constantly evolving.
What seems like a good bet today might not be as attractive
Right.
a few years down the road.
Absolutely. It's a dynamic industry, and investors need to stay informed and be prepared to adapt to change.
Okay, so we've explored their financials,
Yes.
their strategic moves,
Mm-hmm.
the broader industry picture,
Yes.
the investor perspective. What are your final thoughts on ARLP? What's the key takeaway here for our listeners?
I think the main takeaway is that ARLP is a company in transition.
Okay.
They're embracing change,
Yeah.
exploring new opportunities,
Right.
trying to carve out their place in this rapidly evolving energy landscape.
They're not just clinging to the past.
No, they're not.
They're actively looking towards the future.
They are looking towards the future, and they're not afraid to challenge the status quo.
Right. As we've seen with that Bitcoin mining venture.
It's a bold move,
It is.
and it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
It will be fascinating to see how it all unfolds in the years to come.
Yeah, so whether you agree with their strategy or not,
Yeah.
ARLP is definitely a company worth watching.
It's a company to keep on your radar.
Yeah.
I think they'll be making headlines for years to come.
Okay, so that wraps up part 2 of our deep dive into Alliance Resource Partners earnings call.
And make sure you join us for part 3, where we will unveil our outrageously plausible trade idea.
We're going to have some fun with this one, folks.
Don't miss it.
All right, welcome back to Talk Tickers. We've spent the last 2 parts really digging into Alliance Resource Partners' latest earnings call.
Yeah, we've looked at their performance, their strategies, and kind of what their story tells us about the energy sector as a whole.
Exactly, from those coal markets all the way to their Bitcoin mining operation.
It's been a wild ride.
It has, and now it's time for everybody's favorite part.
Oh, do you know what? The part that sets Talk Tickers apart from all those other, boring financial podcasts out there.
I'm ready. Hit me with it.
It's time for our outrageously plausible trade idea.
Let's go.
All right, so you ready for this?
I was born ready.
Okay, so we've talked about how ARLP is kind of walking this tightrope between, traditional energy and the digital world.
Right, they've got a foot in both camps.
Exactly. So what if they just took a giant leap and went all in on crypto?
Okay, I like where this is going.
Right. So here's the idea.
Mm-hmm.
What if they spun off their Bitcoin mining operation
Okay.
into a separate publicly traded company?
Whoa, now that is bold. A Bitcoin mining spinoff.
Right.
I like it.
So they could create this pure play crypto mining company.
Okay.
Leverage all their existing expertise, their infrastructure, their access to low-cost energy.
They'd be tapping into that, crazy crypto market, bringing in a whole new wave of investors.
Exactly. Investors were all about that crypto.
Yeah.
Right. And by separating it from the coal operations, they could potentially unlock a ton of value for their shareholders.
It would let those who are, really into crypto invest in that part.
Right.
And those who are more into, just that stable coal business, they can stick with the original ARLP.
It's a win-win for everybody.
I love it.
Right. And then think about it. They could structure the spin-off so that they still keep a big ownership stake.
Oh, so they still get to benefit from all that future growth?
Exactly.
It's they're the proud parents watching their kid take off.
Exactly. And imagine like the branding possibilities.
Oh, yeah.
They could call it something cool like, ARLP Digital.
Oh.
Or like BlackRock Mining.
I like that.
Right. Something catchy.
Yeah, it's bold, innovative. It really shows that they're serious about this whole digital future.
Exactly. And of course, there are always going to be risks with any spinoff.
Especially in a market like crypto.
Especially with crypto, yeah.
Yeah.
But if ARLP plays their cards right, this could be massive.
It would be huge, make waves in both the energy and the crypto world.
They could be like the pioneers,
Mm-hmm.
leading the way for all those other energy companies
Showing them how it's done.
to embrace this whole digital asset revolution.
I mean, talk about a legacy move.
Right. But of course, as always, this is just our outrageously plausible trade idea.
Not financial advice, folks.
Do your own research, talk to your financial advisor,
Always.
and never invest more than you can afford to lose.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And on that note, we have reached the end of our deep dive into Alliance Resource Partners.
It's been a journey.
It has. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to subscribe to Talk Tickers.
For more deep dives, analysis, and of course, those outrageously plausible trade ideas.
We'll see you next time. Keep those minds curious and those portfolios diversified.
And we'll be here to help you every step of the way.